take it over from here. Here's Janette.
Hi, I'm Janette, also known as Nick's mom to a whole heck of a lot of people. Nick grew up out here in the woods in this area. Unfortunately for me, he learned a lot of lessons that were not good for him. One of them being that it was okay to drive intoxicated and get in the car with intoxicated drivers as long as you were on a piece of property or in the woods. This line of thinking is what killed my son. So let's start back a few years. Nick was a great kid. He was an early entry Marine. He had just passed tests to become a mechanic in the Marines. He was super excited for his future. He was ready to do a lot of things. And I never thought I was going to have a problem with Nick. See, Nick went to Colton schools from kindergarten to 7th grade and then moved to Milwaukee with me. When he moved to Milwaukee, there were several times that I'd wake up on Saturday and Sunday mornings with his friends knocking at the door saying that he had stopped by the party on his way home from work because he got off at 11 o'clock from Fred Meyer's. So he had stopped by the party on his way home from work and taken everybody's keys, and so they would come and retrieve their keys in the morning so that they could all get home. On top of that, he's the one that stood up to me as a young kid and made me quit drinking, because I didn't realize that what I was doing was causing him issues. I thought that since we had a home and cars and he had everything he wanted, that he was fine. When really what all of my kids wanted was their mom. So lucky for me, he stood up to me, and I've been sober for 6 years. Because if I had not been sober the night he died, I guarantee I wouldn't be here today. Because losing a child is the hardest thing anybody can ever go through. So the night of March 30th, 2013, the day of March 30th, 2013, Nick went to the beach with a friend. He called home, asked if he could go to her house for a barbecue, said that he was going to bring her home with him on Sunday morning for Easter breakfast. This is the last Saturday night of his senior spring break. I agreed. I said it was okay, made sure that he was going to her house, transferred $20 into his checking account so he could help out with some food for the barbecue. Little did I know what he was really planning was a bonfire up Hillock Burn Road, with about 30 of his so-called friends. You'll understand why I say so-called very shortly. So when they got up there, they started to run out of alcohol. There were a couple of other friends coming up with more, and they didn't quite know where they were going. So Nick talked his buddy Joey into getting into his 4Runner and driving less than a mile down Hillock Burn Road from 5-Way. So if any of you have ever been up there, the big huge cross that's on the side of the road, that memorializes the place where my son died. So, knowing that they came from 5-Way down the road to meet up with a friend, there were 7 kids in the truck that night. The driver and his girlfriend were seatbelted in the front seat, and there were 5 kids in the back. All 5 kids in the back were not seatbelted and got ejected. 4 of them were lucky enough to land in the middle of the concrete on their backs. And I say lucky enough because what they ended up with is slight injuries. They ended up with back injuries and ankle injuries and arm injuries. My son flew out of the back of that truck, landed in the ditch, and a rock took out the entire right side of his head. And I don't mean it damaged his head and there was blood. I mean, it took out the entire right side of his head and his brain was exposed. That's what his friends got to see that night. That being said, though, when the driver got out of the vehicle and went looking for his friends, just like Brandon did here, he saw most of them walking up the hill to get away from the scene. Why do you think they were walking up the hill to get away from the scene? Because they were all intoxicated and they knew the cops were coming. So they needed to get away. So when the driver yelled out to his friends, "Hey, where's Nick?" because Nick wasn't in that mix, one of them actually yelled back to him, "Nick is in the ditch." You guys, these kids had been friends with my son since kindergarten, and they left him to die alone in a ditch because they were afraid to get in trouble. These had been friends since kindergarten, one of which called herself his girlfriend that night. The sick part about the girlfriend is that she made it all the way back up to her car, realized her keys were in his pocket, went back to his dead body, took her keys from his pocket and went back to her car to get away from the scene. This is what alcohol does to your age group. Today I work in an emergency room at the base of this hill at Willamette Falls. And I can tell you, the majority of the time, you guys, when one of you is coming down from the party, a group of kids will show up, they'll walk in, they'll check them in at the front. This is Jack so-and-so, I'm gonna go move my car, and they never come back. So who is Jack so-and-so?